Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Paramahansa, Dravida Prabhu, Stoker, the Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Dravida Prabhu, Stoker, the Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namasritka Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Dato Jai Mudiriye. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Anashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Oh. Surprise. Hold on. Okay. Thank you. Okay, where was I? Did I do Om Namo? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 On this 21st day of November 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 4, The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 8, Dhruva Maharaj Leaves Home for the Forest. Text number 9. Ekada suruche putram Ankamaropya lalayan
Ankamarokya lalayan
Uttamam narurukshantam
Uttamam narurushantam
Dhruvam raja bhyanandata
Dhruvam raja vyanandata
Ekada suruche putram
Ekada suruche putram
Ankamaropya lalayan
Ankamarokya lalayan
Uttamam narurukshantam
Uttamam narurushantam
Dhruvam raja bhyanandata
Dhruvam raja vyanandata
Ekada suruche putram
Ekada suruche putram
Ankamaropya lalayan
Ankamarokya lalayan
Uttamam narurukshantam
Uttamam narurushantam
Dhruvam raja bhyanandata
Dhruvam raja vyanandata
Ekada suruche putram Ankamaropya lalayan Uttamam narurukshantam Dhruvam raja bhyanandata. Damodar. Okay. Ekada suruche putram Ankamaropya lalayan Uttamam narurukshantam Dhruvam raja bhyanandata. Ekada suruche putram Ankamaropya lalayan Uttamam narurukshantam Dhruvam raja bhyanandata. Ekada suruche putram Ankamaropya lalayan Uttamam narurukshantam Dhruvam raja bhyanandata. Ekada suruche putram Ankamaropya lalayan Uttamam narurukshantam Dhruvam raja bhyanandata. Ekada suruche putram Ankamaropya lalayan Uttamam narurukshantam Dhruvam raja bhyanandata. Ekada, once upon a time, Suruche, of Queen Suruchi, Putram, the son, Ankam, on the lap, Aropya, placing, Lalayan, while patting, Uttamam, Uttama, Na, did not, Arurukshantam, trying to get on, Dhruvam, Dhruva, Raja, the king, Abhyanandata, welcome. Translation. Once upon a time, King Uttanapada was patting the son of Suruchi, Uttama, placing him on his lap. Dhruva Maharaj was also trying to get on the king's lap, but the king did not very much welcome him. Next verse. I'll chant the Sanskrit. Tata chakir shamanam tam sapatnyas tanayam dhruvam suruchi shunbato ragya sershyam ahati garbita. While the child, Dhruva Maharaj, was trying to get on the lap of his father, Suruchi, his stepmother, became very envious of the child, and with great pride she began to speak so as to be heard by the king himself. Purport. The king, of course, was equally affectionate toward both his sons, Uttama and Dhruva, so he had a natural inclination to take Dhruva as well as Uttama on his lap. But because of his favoritism towards his queen, Suruchi, he could not welcome Dhruva Maharaj, despite his feelings. King Uttanapada's feeling was understood by Suruchi, and therefore with great pride she began to speak about the king's affection for her. This is the nature of a woman. If a woman understands that her husband regards her as a favorite and is especially affectionate to her, she takes undue advantage. These symptoms are visible even in such an elevated society as the family of Swayambhuva Manu. Therefore, it is concluded that the feminine nature of woman is present everywhere. I'm going to go on. I'm going to read a few more verses here. Just skip the Sanskrit. Queen Suruchi told Dhruva Maharaj, "My dear child, you do not deserve to sit on the throne or on the lap of the king. Surely you are also the son of the king, but because you did not take your birth from my womb, you are not qualified to sit on your father's lap." Purport. Queen Suruchi very proudly informed Dhruva Maharaj that to be the king's son was not the qualification for sitting on the lap or throne of the king. Rather, this privilege was dependent on one's having taken birth from her womb. In other words, she indirectly informed Dhruva Maharaj that although he happened to be born of the king, he was considered an illegitimate son because of his birth from the womb of the other queen. "My dear child, you are unaware that you were born not of my womb, but of another woman. Therefore, you should know that your attempt is doomed to failure. You are trying to fulfill a desire which is impossible to fulfill." Purport. The small child, Dhruva Maharaj, was naturally affectionate toward his father, and he did not know that there was a distinction between his two mothers. This distinction was pointed out by Queen Suruchi, who informed him that since he was a child, he did not understand the distinction between the two queens. This is another statement of Queen Suruchi's pride. She goes on, speaking, "If you at all desire to rise to the throne of the king, then you have to undergo severe austerities. First of all, you must satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. And then, when you are favored by him because of such worship, you shall have to take your next birth from my womb." Purport. Suruchi was so envious of Dhruva Maharaj that she indirectly asked him to change his body. According to her, first of all he had to die, then take his next body in her womb, and only then would it be possible for Dhruva Maharaj to ascend the throne of his father. Then Maitreya said, "My dear Vidura, as a snake, when struck by a stick, breathes very heavily, so Dhruva Maharaj, having been struck by the strong words of his stepmother, began to breathe very heavily because of great anger. When he saw that his father was silent and did not protest, he immediately left the place and went to his mother. When Dhruva Maharaj reached his mother, his lips were trembling in anger, and he was crying very grievously. Queen Suniti immediately lifted her son onto her lap, while the palace residents who had heard all the harsh words of Suruchi related everything in detail. Thus Suniti also became greatly aggrieved. This incident was unbearable to Suniti's patience. She began to burn as if in a forest fire, and in her grief she became just like a burnt leaf, and so lamented. As she remembered the words of her co-wife, her bright lotus-like face filled with tears, and thus she spoke. Purport. When a man is aggrieved, he feels exactly like a burnt leaf in a forest fire. Suniti's position was like that. Although her face was as beautiful as a lotus flower, it dried up because of the burning fire caused by the harsh words of her co-wife. Suniti also was breathing very heavily, and she did not know the factual remedy for the painful situation. Not finding any remedy, she said to her son, "My dear son, don't wish for anything inauspicious for others. Anyone who inflicts pains upon others suffers himself from that pain." Suniti said, "My dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi is so, because the king, your father, does not consider me his wife or even his maidservant. He feels ashamed to accept me. Therefore it is a fact that you have taken birth from the womb of an unfortunate woman, and by being fed from her breast, you have grown up. My dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi, your stepmother, although very harsh to hear, is factual. Therefore, if you desire at all to sit on the same throne as your stepbrother, Uttama, then give up your envious attitude and immediately try to execute the instructions of your stepmother. Without further delay, you must engage yourself in worshipping the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead." Purport. The harsh words used by Suruchi to her stepson were true, because unless one is favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot achieve any success in life. Man proposes, God disposes. Suniti, the mother of Dhruva Maharaj, agreed with her co-wife's advice that Dhruva engage himself in the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indirectly, the words of Suruchi were a benediction for Dhruva Maharaj, for because of the influence of his stepmother's words, he became a great devotee. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So sometimes we have a kind of a false idea about some of these previous yugas. Although Satya Yuga was a yuga when everyone was more or less in the mode of goodness, and meditation was going on everywhere, and people lived for 100,000 years, still we see that there is pride, and there is arrogance, there is anger, and there will also be unwarranted killing when the Yakshas kill Uttama. And Dhruva Maharaj becomes enraged. So in this case, we see a classic scene of a queen of the king who is anxious to have her son get the kingdom. And because she has an advantage, because she has the king's affections, she's utilizing it, she's leveraging it, and so trying to come between Dhruva and King Uttanapada, which she successfully does, at least temporarily. But what she said was actually accurate, at least to the part about him having to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What she didn't note is that he wouldn't have to take birth from her womb. So that's something that we can take into account, is that in order to resolve the problems that arise in this material world, and we're living in the Kali Yuga, and these kind of sentiments are expanded and multiplied thousands of times, and they're everywhere. The envy, the pride, and we just heard how they're all taking birth from Brahma, right? So Brahma is not so happy about it, but this is part of his duty, is to make this world, the material world, what it is. And that means, remember those 5 kinds of ignorance he created first? You know, fear of death, identification with the body, and general egotism. So that was first, and then these figures that he created personified damba, cheating and bluffing, and pride and falsity, and all of these things. So they're present in the material world. The material world doesn't work unless those things are here to some degree. Because for people to stay illusioned and to forget willingly their relationship with God, there needs to be this bodily concept of life, and this false pride, and this envy between people, and all of this that go into make the material world and help us to continue to forget Krishna. So, as Prabhupada says here, the harsh words used by Suruchi was Stepan were true. So in one sense, she acted like a guru for him. Vartma Pradarshika Guru. She showed the path into the forest, you know, where he can find God and take shelter of him. And we know it's going to develop that Narada Muni, as he often does, going to take advantage of the situation and instruct Dhruva in such a way that he becomes a very, very exalted devotee. So yesterday I pointed out the importance of the names, the Suruchi. Ruchi means beauty, physical beauty here. So she has that, and she's captured the mind, enchanted the mind of Uttanapada. So that he does something that he later regrets very much. And this is one of the aspects of the material world, is that by yielding to temptation, one performs an activity that often you regret, and can guide the rest of your life. You take a step this way. I remember, I think Dharma was saying how he was pocketing things, pickpocketing. In other words, shoplifting. So I had a period of my life where I was doing that. It was 1968, and I was living down in the Lower East Side, 2 blocks from Tompkins Square Park. And I didn't go over there to attend the kirtans, but anyway, I was in proximity. So it's hard to imagine what it was like at that particular year. It was a critical year in American history, and there was all of this idea, this revolutionary fervor in the air. as they felt, that the revolution is coming, and the Vietnam War had alienated thousands and millions of youths, and so people were in the streets and were reading all of this, communist literature and socialism and this thing. So somehow I integrated that into my idea of liberating various things from the local store. And I was a meat eater then. I remember pocketing, kind of just going into the store and nonchalantly putting it into my jacket and a steak or something and walking out, And it was just Krishna's arrangement that I never got caught. I never got caught because you get a record. I mean, it changes your whole life, But this is the when you don't have a strong moral structure like we have here, where very obviously what is wrong and what is right, and you're in an environment where that is being strengthened and supported by association and by a routine and by the books, it's easy to just get into whatever the zeitgeist is, whether the time is. You're heavily affected by that. So we should remember that this time we have now is much more disturbing, because in those days there was hope. It was a false hope, but at least there was hope that that the new age is coming, the age of Aquarius, and it's there's the revolution will bring to peace on earth and all of these things. We actually believe that. Actually, at the end of '68, when Nixon was elected, it was a huge downer. After all this work, years and years of struggle, anti-war struggle and socialism and peace and all of this, and here's this guy come in who's going to make it worse, and he did. And so then there became a lot of discouragement. The music changed and the drug changed. The drugs were like marijuana and LSD, which are meant to expand your consciousness and make you peaceful. But then there was a lot of methamphetamine and all this stuff that was coming in, and then the cocaine era happened in the 70s and 80s. And the whole thing just became, in many quarters, a nightmare. And meanwhile, you had all these veterans coming back from the Vietnam War, and you still see them on the street, these poor guys. Their lives were totally ruined by that experience. What they saw, what they had to do, and the trauma that they went through. It's crazy. So the elements that result in that, in a kind of a terminal society like we have now, Kali Yuga, are always there. And we see this, within the confines of the emperor's house. I mean, this, king, and this is just, he's the son of Swayambhuva Manu, who's the son of Brahma, who's the son of Krishna. It's kind of, still, you have these anomalies developing. So, but despite that fact, Suruchi, her instruction, I'm reminded of a verse in the 11th canto where Krishna, he just sang the Ila Gita. The Ila Gita for Udhava. Ila is another name for Pururava. And Pururava, we haven't met yet. I think he comes first in the 5th canto. We'll see him. But he's a king who gets totally mesmerized by Urvasi. And she's like a heavenly damsel that comes down. And, he was enjoying himself. He didn't know the days were going by. He didn't know like that. But there was a deal that if she ever sees him naked in a different time, when they're not supposed to going to have sex, then she's going to leave. So that was actually engineered. That in the middle of the night they stole her pet lambs. A couple of Gandharvas came down, and he gets up. He's the king of the church and runs outside. What are you doing? But he's naked. And he comes back and she says, "Well, that's it. I'm going back to the heavenly planets." No. And for like years and years and. He's completely bewildered. When will I see her again? And she, okay, you can come and see me once a year. And, oh God! So after all of this, he has this song of renunciation, and it's called the Ila Gita. It's very graphic. It says, "How am I different than a worm and stool? I'm trying to enjoy this body, and the worm is in there also trying to enjoy my body. For so many years I served the lips of Urvasi. What have I gotten? All of this misery and everything." So Krishna's giving this to Uddhava. And it's, very strong. And after that, he talks about he gives the song of the Avanti Brahman. How he also, that's part of it. But in between, he has some very important verses. So after this, he talks about how he says, Tasmat duk sangam utsrija satsu sajjeta buddhiman santa evas chindandi monovyasaga muktabi. And the reason I thought of this, because this talks about the strong words, sharp words of the Guru, which can cut our very strongly attached, attachments that are stuck in our mind. So he says, therefore, because it all comes down to Sangha. He says, therefore, reject, and utsrija means throw it far away. Duk Sangha, not Satsanga, Duk Sangha, bad association. And associate with sadhus, with the devotees. Tato Duk Sangam utsrija, Satsu is the devotee. Satsu Sajjeta Buddhiman. Associate with them. If you're intelligent, you'll do this. Be intelligent and give up bad association and associate with saints. What's the advantage? Santa eva sachinnadi monavyasaga muktabi. With their words, uktibi, which are like a sword, the saints, the Guru, will cut, excise from your mind the strongly impacted desires that have been in there from time immemorial. And so that kind of strong language, now Suruchi, of course, her motive was material, but she acted like that for Dhruva. And I mean, what would have happened? I mean, just project, if that hadn't happened and he had climbed onto the lap of his father, and, Suniti had also been favored, so the two queens are living nicely. So Dhruva would have just inherited the kingdom. He wouldn't have become Dhruva, the Dhruva we know. So this was a great benediction to him, going through that trauma of feeling that his father didn't love him, and being a Kshatriya, he went out into the forest, and then Narada comes in, just ideally, and gives him just what he needs. You notice Narada, he speaks exactly what's necessary for the person he's preaching to advance in devotional service. So it all worked out. It was Krishna's arrangement. And we can see that sometimes in our own lives, how, I know in my own, back when I was searching and everything for some answer to life's problems, Krishna arranged for me to lose my job, or I didn't lose it, I quit it, but then I didn't get another one, and I thought I was going to get someone without a job. But also to somehow be guided toward the chanting of the holy name. That was, and to be attracted to it, which is the greatest blessing. We should always remember that our taste for chanting and hearing the holy name is our most precious possession. And how do you lose that possession? By offensiveness. By offending devotees, you lose your attraction for the holy name. You may not even realize it, what's going on, but somehow, being in kirtans, associating, coming to the temple becomes less of something that you want to do. You do it less frequently, and it doesn't. Meanwhile, you're building up all kinds of association with the modes, and it's less meaningful. And after a while, you're saying, I don't have time for this. It's super soul kicking you out. That's the way it works. And it starts practically every time with offending devotees. And also, of course, slackening in sadhana. And we should remember that, in a tight little island like this, a little community, everything we do affects everyone else. If I'm walking through this corridor here, and I step over some trash that's fallen in there and go to the back and do whatever I do, and someone sees that, that's going to affect. That's going to affect. Means that, oh, okay, so that's the standard. Even unconsciously, you'll say, well, okay, I don't have to do it. If he didn't do it, then I'm not going to do it. So even though, because I'm, just by getting older, I'm a senior devotee, so I have, it's more. But every one of us has that effect. If someone is really doing some enthusiastic, nice service, then others who see him and said, oh, okay, let me do that also. But if you see someone just clacking off and, then that's the standard. It's just like that. So we have a responsibility to be Krishna conscious for each other also. I mean, when I was in the ashram, it was like that. There's no way that you join an ashram and you're spontaneously attracted to wake up in the middle of the night and take a cold shower and come down here and Mangalarti. You may be, the first few days it's all fresh and new, so okay, I want to do it, But then the long haul sets in week after week, month after month. To maintain that determination is a real act of surrender. But you should know that that's also supportive of everybody else's sadhana. We're all affecting each other. And that's true outside as well. There's this whole thing called the broken window theory of crime control in the big cities. During the 80s in New York, there was a police commissioner and it just has to do with the modes of nature. If you go into a part of town and the windows are broken, there's trash on the street, then it's the mode of ignorance, right? And so I say, oh, okay, so this place people aren't really taking much care, so I can just rip this off, I can do this, crime is rampant. But if everything is neat and clean, and people, you'll be less likely to do that because it'll be the mode of passion, at least, maybe a little goodness. So that's obviously true in an environment like this, where we're trying to maintain high standards. The cleanliness is so significant. That's one of the things that makes the temple attractive, if it's really, really clean. And that because it reflects the cleanliness in everyone's heart. And it's just something you don't find out there. So this is another aspect of maintaining this environment. And now, we're launching into this wonderful story of Dhruva. Now, Dhruva Maharaj, he exemplifies this principle that we all experience. And that is that you have so many material motives because you're in the material world and you're conditioned. So even to come to Krishna consciousness, people walk through the door. I mean, how many devotees have become devotees because they return to the temple to get the prasadam? So preaching, cooking in the Sunday feast is a hugely important preaching aspect, and we should refine that as far as possible. So the motive is not pure, but that's okay. You come, you'll contact the holy name, the devotees, the prasadam, books, because you're in the environment. And so immediately you're getting purified just by being in that environment. So that's that principle is there, and we as devotees we have a responsibility. Even though we're just sitting in the temple, it's a preaching environment. The very act of being in a temple, maintaining a temple, is so important for the outpost. I've been almost 30 years now. This temple is like an anomaly here, the fact that there's a Hare Krishna temple there. But you can see it has an influence everywhere. People see us, and it's kind of a little oasis here, and in SanDiego. So we should maintain that way. Okay, I want to leave a little time to read about Bhugarbha Goswami and Kashishwar Pandit. So if there's any comments or questions, we can entertain them for a few minutes. It works. There's a phantom power switch that was off. Phantom power. It's a red light that goes on. Someone had hit that, and that's why that wasn't working for a few days.
So you mentioned that verse. By the strong words they cut out.
And
I looked that up in the BBT, the Bhagavatam, and I didn't see any commentary for that verse.
There's
I'm wondering if there was commentary by anyone.
There is, because that verse is quoted in the first chapter of the CC, all about the Guru.
Oh, really? It's quoted in the first chapter of the CC.
Yeah, you should be.
By Prabhupada.
Yeah.
So there's commentary by Prabhupada.
I think they will be there. Yeah.
Okay. And what about commentary by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur or something in the
that we have.
itself?
We have. This is the age. We're being inundated with books. I just got anyone can have it. There's a book written by who was it? Sundarananda Vidya Vinod, who was like a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, all about Puri, about Jagannath Puri. And there's a book written by our own Bhakti Chaitanya Swami about Vrindavan, about the pilgrimage, and it's all full of pictures, this mat and everything. It's a huge book, PDF, but if you have a device to read it, you can have it. But what were you asking?
I was just asking if there's a commentary by Vishnu.
Oh, yes. So I have an ebook that was prepared by Devamrita Swami over years now, it's a regular Bhagavatam with all Prabhupada's commentary in the 10th, 11th, 12th cantos, but appended to all the purports where he wrote something, and he wrote almost for every verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti's commentary. And in the 10th canto, there's also now, which we've had for less than a year, the translation by a commentary by Sanatana Goswami and Jiva Goswami. So I can, I can put it on your iPad so you can read it. So there probably is a nice commentary on that verse by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur.
Okay.
So we'll find that for you. He's a real student, studious. Okay, so should I read a little about Bhugarbha Goswami?
Yeah.
He was actually a very important figure, but he insisted to Krishna's Kaviraj that he not put him in the CC, so he's barely mentioned. That was true of Lokanath Swami also. Okay, so Bhugarbha Goswami. Sri Bhugarbha Goswami, he was a disciple of Sri Gadadhar Pandit. Sri Bhugarbha Goswami shared an intimate friendship with Sri Lokanath Goswami. Inspired by Lord Chaitanya, they were the first and most senior devotees to settle in Vrindavan. Before the arrival of Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatana Goswamis, they tried to uncover the lost holy places of Radha Govindaji. Unlike the aggressive approach of modern scientists to discover the unknown, Bhugarbha and Lokanath Goswamis found Sri Krishna's pastime forests by the humble method of surrender. They simply wandered around Vrindavan, calling out the names of her 12 forests. Bandiravana, Kamyavan, Mahavan, Talavan, and Srimati Vrinda Devi, the maintainer of the forests and an expansion of Krishna's pastime potency, revealed the exact location of each and every forest. It is told that to avoid material distractions, Bhugarbha would perform his bhajan underground. That's a bhu is the ground. So he received the name Bhugarbha. Bhu means earth, Garbha means cave, womb, hidden place. He's Prema Manjari of Bhadra Rekika in Radha Gopinath's Nitya Nakunja Leela. So, if you, and when you go to Radha Damodar temple, you'll see his samadhi there. It's right, as it says here, it's right near Rupa Goswami's in the Radha Damodar temple courtyard. A very wonderful devotee. And Kashishwar Pandit, he was an associate of Lord Chaitanya's in Jagannath Puri. Sri Ishwara Puri sent his disciples Govinda and Kashishwar Pandit to Jagannath Puri to humbly serve Lord Chaitanya. Now, why was that a problem for Lord Chaitanya? Do you know why? Yeah. The godbrothers, you're not supposed to accept, service from your godbrothers. Reluctant to accept service from his godbrothers, Lord Chaitanya finally agreed since it was his guru's wish. Named Kalavati and Shashi Rekha in Braj Leela, Govinda and Kashishwar bring Yamuna water to Lord Sri Krishna. Kashishwar Pandit, who was strong and powerfully built, used to walk before Lord Chaitanya, keeping the crowds from touching him. This is in Puri, during the Rath Yatra especially. And after kirtans, he would serve prasadam to all the devotees. Sri Gaura Sundar asked Kashishwar to move to Vrindavan for worshipping Sri Rupa Goswami's deity of Govindaji. Fearing separation from Lord Chaitanya, Kashishwar said, "My Lord, if I must give up your association, my heart will split in two." Out of compassion for his devotee, Lord Gaurachandra gave him a deity of himself that was so perfectly formed it exactly resembled the Lord. Gaur Govinda, the deity's name, is a golden form of Krishna playing a flute. Then Kashishwar Pandit happily went to Vrindavan to serve Gaur Govinda and Govindaji. There's a book called Sri Sadhana Deepika, which says, "I worship Sri Kashishwar Pandit, whose power of love and devotion brought Sri Chaitanya to Western India as a deity, Western India being Vrindavan." Today, the original deities of Gaur Govinda and Govindaji are lovingly adored by thousands of devotees in Jaipur, Rajasthan. Kashishwar Pandit's original samadhi is in the 64 samadhis area. That was fascinating. Anything else, Bruce? Yes. Yes, that's what he's saying. He's worshipped at the same time. And that's probably the origin of Gaur Govinda Maharaj's name, that deity, which I didn't know before. Thank you, Prabhu. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.